From the late-night show host putting his entire staff on unpaid leave, to people thinking Jimmy Fallon needs to speak up in support of the WGA strikes, this is the real reason why so many late-night show hosts are firing their staff. For starters, Jimmy Fallon is facing a lot of backlash after placing non-writing staff members on unpaid leave. Guess the guy that's all smiles isn't giving his employees many reasons to be happy right now. Now, it's fair to say that this decision has been termed extremely controversial by many of his fans, which isn't exactly a surprise, considering all the WGA strikes going on right now. So, the news broke after a source close to NBC spoke to HuffPost about it. They didn't choose to disclose their name, which is probably a good consideration since they may get in a lot of trouble for even revealing this. Turns out, they spilled some beans on just what's going on at The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And boy, is it spicy. Turns out, the staff got emails on May 15th, which told them that they had to attend an important scheduled call. With everything going on right now, no surprise that the staff members were admittedly afraid of what the call might lead to. And in a statement, the source even mentioned that it felt sort of like a classic layoff, having a meeting with HR and dreading the next day. And it doesn't get better from here. In the conversation, the employees were told that they were being kept on unpaid leave. Basically, they're being fired for now. Sheesh. The reason cited behind this was, yep, you guessed it, the Writers Guild of America strikes. And just when you think things couldn't get any worse, the employees were told that they couldn't really ask any questions. It was just a situation of them being told what was going to happen, and then being forced to deal with it. And the words that were used were super shady too. Like, they chose to call it an unpaid leave of absence, instead of, calling it what it was, a good old-fashioned layoff. But hey, I guess that's how Fallon and his team are choosing to frame it. I'm not sure what else to call a situation where you tell a big portion of your staff to not show up for work the next day, while informing them that they won't be getting paid. The anonymous source also stated that the team's final check will come in next week. Hope they've got a bit of extra change saved up, because being in this situation requires absolute luck. There hasn't been an official statement from The Tonight Show just yet, and if I had to guess, the writing staff may also have to deal with this exact situation. While this is frustrating to deal with, it's not unexpected. That's because a couple of weeks ago, quite a lot of these late-night shows closed up shop. This includes Late Night with Seth Meyers, too. The network stated that they'd compensate the staff for a week, but Fallon and Meyers stood up and said they'd pay for 3 entire weeks. What's more, employees were told that their healthcare benefits could continue to apply until September 2023. It's the only support they could offer. And while I suppose it's better than nothing, it's really not that great of an option for someone who's just been laid off. Now, I know y'all may think it's sort of unrealistic to keep staff on board when there's no show being made, but keep in mind that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel Live are reportedly keeping their staff paid even with the WGA strike going on. So it's pretty unacceptable that 2 of the biggest names in the late-night show world are refusing to follow their example. Because of this, it's no surprise that people are up in arms and totally want some changes to be brought about. Because it's not like the WGA strike is going anywhere. The Writers Guild of America has been on strike for weeks now, and it all comes down to the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers refusing to negotiate a better deal for the writers. The folks who are pretty much the brains behind all these shows y'all love to watch just want better pay and decent working conditions. But it seems even that's too much to ask for. There's bound to be even more disruption in the coming weeks, which will definitely lead to a bigger loss of money than if they were to just settle and meet their demands. Viewers may start to tune off of television. And with streaming being such a big thing now, sincerely, this may just be the final bullet that kills TV for good. You never know. Shows like Saturday Night Live have already run out of new episodes and have halted production since the strike started. Any hope of there being a settlement being drawn up also seems like a pipe dream, especially when you've got people like Jimmy Fallon that are seemingly taking stances that go against the well-being of their staff and firing them at a time when they very much need support. It kind of makes it seem like they're not really valued all that much, right? And what makes this decision even more controversial is that Fallon flipped his decision. Initially, when he was interviewed about the strikes, he seemed to be in full support of his staff. The guy said that he'd be nothing without his writers, and fully supported them. While he did admit that he'd go dark if the strikes began, Jimmy looked like he was on board for the writers' cause and would be supporting them. During the interview, he even went as far as to say that he's in the Writers Guild of America himself. So obviously, he's one of the good guys. But now that things have gotten tough, it seems that he's changed his stance altogether. Though, as it turns out, the question may have caught him off guard, and Jimmy was just freeballing a response that'd make him look the best in the situation. That's because Sarah Kobos, one of the staff members on Fallon's show, claimed that NBC informed them in a meeting that Jimmy couldn't even bother to attend, that they'd stop being paid after the week, and their health insurance would end by next month. Luckily, he did swoop in later on and got them 2 extra weeks worth of pay. And healthcare till September, like I said before. But still, for someone claiming to be on the side of the writers and staff, it just doesn't seem like that's enough. But still, some fans feel like you still have to commend Jimmy for still doing his part. It's clear that Fallon alone can't bring about massive sweeping changes. And with the strike going on for who knows how long, it's just not feasible for him to keep the entire staff on his payroll. And so, what little support he got NBC to provide is still a pretty good step. It also highlights that the real people that can bring change are the higher-ups. I'm talking about the folks who are in CEO positions. You'd be surprised at just how much dough they manage to rake in. The numbers are downright insane. So I think it's fair to say they can afford to pay the writers a bit more, because there's only so much that these late-night show hosts can do on their own. Surprisingly, Adam Conover put it best when talking to CNN about the recent strikes. The comedian straight up blasted David Zaslav, the CEO of the very network he was asked to come and speak at. Adam mentioned that the idea that these large companies aren't making enough money to support their writers is a complete lie. Like David Zaslav, who was paid $250 million just last year. $250 million. That's crazy to think about. That number is about the same as what 10,000 writers from all over America are asking him to pay them. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Adam went on to say that it's not just David who earns this much. Tons of other companies are reporting hugely inflated numbers too, while the writers that are actually making their shows are barely managing to scrape by. Like, some of these writers are struggling to even pay their rent or mortgages, while the owners of the networks go out and buy their 5th yacht. The people who own these companies are still making just as much money as ever, or probably even a lot more nowadays. But it's the people working on these shows who are really suffering. Because of this, fans want late-night show hosts to also speak up on this. It's great that some of them are trying to do their part. But it seems until these people all start speaking up and making it clear just where they stand on the matter, big sweeping changes may just never come. We've seen how hosts like Jay Leno have made their support for the WGA clear. And while Fallon also talked about how he's totally all for it, it'd be nice to have him go after the people that are actually in powerful positions and have the power to make some real change. So, there you have it. From fans thinking Jimmy Fallon needs to speak up more in support of the WGA strikes, to the late-night show host putting his entire staff on unpaid leave, that was the real reason why so many late-night show hosts are firing their staff.